First up, we have the e-commerce giant, Amazon. Back in 2003, Amazon stock was trading at just $7 per share. Fast forward 20 years, and at its highest price, it was worth over $100 per share. Adjusted for splits, of course. A $1,000 investment in Amazon 20 years ago would have grown to over $14,000. But get this, if you had invested during its initial growth in the late 90s, you'd potentially be sitting on millions today. Amazon started as an online bookstore, but quickly evolved into a juggernaut that revolutionized e-commerce, cloud computing, and even entertainment. Next, the tech titan, Apple. In 2003, Apple's stock was trading at just 25 cents per share, split adjusted. That's right, 25 cents. At its peak, Apple's stock soared to around $150 per share. A $1,000 investment in 2003 could have gotten you 4,000 shares. Multiply that by its highest price, and you'd have a whopping $600,000. And that's not even counting dividends. Apple's rise from near bankruptcy to one of the most iconic brands in history is nothing short of legendary. Moving on, we have Netflix. In 2003, Netflix was just starting its transition from DVD rentals to streaming. At that time, its stock was trading at about $1.21 per share. At its highest, it climbed to over $330. A $1,000 investment back then would have grown to a staggering $272,000. Talk about binge-worthy returns. Quick break. Want to start investing but feel overwhelmed? We've got you covered. Get your free guide, Stocks Investing for Beginners. A simple, easy-to-follow roadmap to help you build wealth in the stock market. No confusing jargon, just clear and actionable steps. Download it now from the link in the description below. Now, back to our list of incredible stock success stories. Here's one you might not expect. Monster Beverage. In 2003, this energy drink company's stock was trading at just 10 cents. Fast forward 20 years, and at its peak, it was worth around $50 per share. A $1,000 investment in Monster back then would have bought you 10,000 shares, now worth $500,000 at its highest value. While it wouldn't quite make you a millionaire, it's proof that even small, seemingly niche companies can deliver huge returns. Next on our list is Microsoft. In 2003, the stock was trading around $24 per share. At its peak, Microsoft's stock reached over $240, a tenfold increase. A $1,000 investment back then would have grown to over $10,000. Combined with dividends and consistent growth, Microsoft remains a tech giant with staying power. Starbucks might just be your morning coffee, but for early investors, it's been a gold mine. In 2003, Starbucks was trading at just $6 per share. At its highest price, it soared to over $100 per share. A $1,000 investment 20 years ago would have grown to nearly $17,000. Imagine sipping your coffee while watching your portfolio grow. NVIDIA, the leader in graphics processing, has been a game changer in the tech world. Back in 2003, its stock was trading at around $3 per share. At its peak, it skyrocketed to over $400. A $1,000 investment in NVIDIA would have grown to over $133,000. With AI and gaming on the rise, NVIDIA continues to dominate. Home improvement projects paid off big for Home Depot investors. In 2003, the stock was trading at $25 per share. At its peak, it climbed to over $300. A $1,000 investment 20 years ago would have grown to more than $12,000. Home Depot proves that retail giants can build strong returns. Costco's membership-based model has been a win-win for consumers and investors. In 2003, Costco was trading around $30 per share. At its highest, it soared to over $500. A $1,000 investment back then would have grown to over $16,000. Those bulk savings extend to your portfolio too. Domino's Pizza delivered more than just dinner. It delivered massive returns. In 2003, its stock was trading at around $5 per share. At its peak, it reached over $400. A $1,000 investment back then would have grown to over $80,000. That's a lot of pizza. Intuitive Surgical, the leader in robotic surgery, has transformed healthcare and portfolios alike. In 2003, the stock was trading at just $14 per share. At its highest price, it climbed to over $250. A $1,000 investment back then would have grown to nearly $18,000. Adobe's creative software suite has become indispensable, and so has its stock. In 2003, Adobe was trading at around $30 per share. At its peak, it soared to over $500. A $1,000 investment would have grown to over $16,000. Creativity clearly pays. Deere & Company, the agricultural machinery leader, has plowed its way to profits. In 2003, the stock was trading at around $20 per share. At its highest price, it reached over $450. A $1,000 investment 20 years ago would have grown to over $22,000. Formerly known as Priceline, Booking Holdings has taken investors on a journey. In 2003, the stock was trading around $50 per share. At its peak, it climbed to over $2,500. A $1,000 investment back then would have grown to over $50,000. Salesforce, the pioneer in cloud computing, started small and grew big. In 2003, its stock was trading at around $4 per share. At its highest price, it soared to over $200. A $1,000 investment would have grown to over $50,000. Tesla, the electric vehicle pioneer, is another standout. In 2010, Tesla's stock was trading at just $17 per share at its IPO. At its highest adjusted price, Tesla reached over $400 per share. A $1,000 investment in Tesla during its IPO would have grown to over $23,500, thanks to its meteoric rise in stock splits. Amazon's rival, Walmart, also delivered consistent returns. In 2003, its stock traded around $50 per share. At its peak, Walmart's stock reached over $160 per share. A $1,000 investment would have grown to over $3,200, a testament to steady retail growth. Google's parent company, Alphabet, went public in 2004. Its IPO price was $85 per share. At its peak, Alphabet reached over $3,000 per share before the stock split. A $1,000 investment in Google during its IPO would have grown to over $35,000. Roku, the streaming hardware and platform company, had its IPO in 2017 at $14 per share. At its peak, Roku's stock climbed to over $450. A $1,000 investment at its IPO would have grown to over $32,000 in just a few years. Chipotle Mexican Grill has been a hot commodity. In 2006, its IPO was priced at $22 per share. At its peak, Chipotle stock reached over $2,000 per share. A $1,000 investment during its IPO would have grown to over $90,000. Lululemon, the athleisure giant, went public in 2007 with its stock priced at $18 per share. At its peak, Lululemon's stock soared to over $450 per share. A $1,000 investment in its IPO would have grown to over $25,000. Spotify, the music streaming platform, had its direct listing in 2018 with a reference price of $132 per share. At its peak, Spotify climbed to over $380. A $1,000 investment in Spotify would have grown to over $2,800. PayPal, the digital payment leader, re-emerged as an independent company in 2015. At the time, its stock was trading at $40 per share. At its highest, PayPal soared to over $300. A $1,000 investment would have grown to over $7,500. Shopify, the e-commerce platform, went public in 2015 with its stock priced at $17 per share. At its peak, Shopify climbed to over $1,700. A $1,000 investment during its IPO would have grown to over $100,000. Zoom, the video conferencing giant, went public in 2019 with an IPO price of $36 per share. At its peak, Zoom's stock soared to over $550. A $1,000 investment would have grown to over $15,000 during its rise. Meta Platforms, formerly Facebook, had its IPO in 2012 at $38 per share. At its peak, Meta's stock climbed to over $380. A $1,000 investment would have grown to over $10,000. The semiconductor leader AMD, trading at $4 per share in 2003, reached a peak of over $150. A $1,000 investment back then would have grown to over $37,500. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's investment vehicle. In 2003, the B shares traded at around $2,500 each. At its peak, those shares climbed to over $35,000. A $1,000 investment would have grown to over $14,000, showcasing the power of compound growth under savvy management. Another notable mention is Visa, the global payment processing leader. It went public in 2008 at $44 per share. At its peak, Visa's stock reached over $250 per share. A $1,000 investment during its IPO would have grown to over $5,600. With its near monopoly in the credit card market, Visa remains a staple in long-term portfolios. Finally, let's look at Ford, a company that has been an integral part of American automotive history for over a century. Trading around $10 in 2003, Ford's stock eventually reached over $25 at its peak, meaning a $1,000 investment would have grown to over $2,500. Want to invest in the next big stock before everyone else? There are over 6,000 stocks in the US market alone, and finding the true winners takes days, weeks, and even months of research. We did the work for you. Get our 100 Hidden Gem Stocks Guide, a hand-picked list of undervalued, high-growth stocks with massive potential. Here's a sneak peek at one of them, a rapidly growing company with huge upside potential. Other services charge $99 for just 10 picks. You get 100 stocks for only $12. Unlock your next big investment today. Click the link in the description to grab your copy now. And there you have it, 30 incredible stocks that turn small investments into life-changing fortunes. Which stock has made you the most profit? Comment below and let us know. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Money Mill for more fun facts about financial and wealth-building topics. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.